Pay no mind, baby. Hard times may be the thing that you need. Sometimes things break down. The reason fixes. Gonna find a way. We'll find a way.
Hello and good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Depends on what time you're watching this, listening to it, right? I mean, it's morning. It's morning for us, right?
Yeah, morning for us. Yeah, it's 12:30 here. But
okay. Where you at? Where you out of?
I'm in West Palm Beach, Florida.
Oh, okay. I grew up in Port St. Lucie, so
very cool. Yeah, right north of here. Yep,
right north.
I've only been here for a little over 2 months now.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Okay. I'm a little rusty in the voice this morning, as you would say.
You're all good, man. You're all good.
So, Ruben Vargas, or is it Vegas?
Vargas. Yep.
Vargas. Okay, Vargas Jr. All right.
Yeah.
I appreciate you being on here. Like I said, even before this, anybody who takes their time to come on a podcast with me is always awesome. It's always the same three questions, no matter who you are. How and why you got into martial arts, what's martial arts doing in your life right now, and what's your plans for martial arts in the future. Pretty simple. I mean, no 30 for 30 ESPN questions here.
whatever format you got for me, I'm good with going with. Like I said before, it's a pleasure to be speaking with you. Thanks for reaching out, and whether it's just this one time or we talk 10 times in the future, I'm always happy to come on for you. As far as why I got into martial arts, started in martial arts at the age of 5. I'll be 31 in just a couple months here. Grew up in kind of a rough neck of the woods, Gary, Indiana, specifically, and martial arts is. My father was a martial artist his whole life, and he got me into it young, kind of to keep me out of the streets and as best as he could. And it's just something I grew up doing. I did traditional martial arts, Shotokan karate and Wing Chun Kung Fu were my disciplines growing up until I reached my teenage years. And after I got to about 15, I started doing jiu-jitsu, kickboxing, and boxing under Miguel Torres in Hammond, Indiana. And from there, that started my journey into the more mixed martial arts, progressing through those things. That's how I got into martial arts.
So you said your father was also into martial arts. What was he into?
Yeah, he was in Taekwondo and Hapkido. And I was not very athletic growing up, so things like Taekwondo and Hapkido weren't. Hapkido's got a little like some wrist locks and whatnot in it, but still a lot of flashy kicks, and I couldn't get up off the ground for stuff like that growing up. So I stuck to things that were more grounded. Even some things in Shotokan were a little bit tricky at times, but I still a lot of grounded movement, and then Wing Chun is very, very grounded. There ain't no lifting your legs off the ground at that. So that worked out very well for me growing up.
Now, why wasn't you very why wasn't you very active as a kid? Was it
I was very overweight as a kid. And just growing up, I was on that Puerto Rican rice diet, and I didn't take athletics very seriously. And even as a martial artist, we see it a lot in the martial arts community, in traditional martial arts, and I'm very much traditionalist at heart. But you can get away with a lot without being challenged that much physically, because it's a lot of kata and forms, and there's not much of a full contact aspect to it, so you never really get your lungs tested, and just because of that, you get away with not having to be an athlete to do it. But I got on that as I got into the jiu-jitsu and kickboxing, and my lungs started to get tested. I had to progress as an athlete. So
but one of the things too is I don't think people understand actually how much even just doing kata will get you in shape also.
Oh, sure,
I mean,
sure.
It depends on what effort you're putting into it, right? I mean,
right. Definitely.
like me
Definitely.
myself, that's how I actually got back into shape. I was almost, and I'm sure people that's listening to this podcast gets tired of it, but I like to take each podcast as somebody is never going to listen to the rest of the podcast, so they get to just hear this one, right? I was almost 700 less, more weight I get off, things get a little bit different and things like that. So, that's another thing, people also kind of look at martial arts different, especially like my wife and like even my parents. When we was younger, they all thought it was like the movies in the 80s and the kung fu, or karate movies where they're sitting in the corner and, meditating and, trying to levitate off the ground and stuff. And it's not like that. People get this weird outlook when it comes to martial arts, or it's a gym where only MMA, even if you get to an MMA gym, it's just, ripped, beast of men and women, right? That just want to sit there and pound each other. And it's not like that.
It's not like that at all. Yeah.
No. In the community, there is gyms out there that would be like that. I'm not sitting there saying there's not, or a dojo out there that's not violent,
super spiritual or violent. Yeah, no doubt.
Spiritual.
Yeah, I've walked into. I mean, I've trained at. I don't even know how many gyms I've been through the years, passing through states or getting invited to train elsewhere. And, I've walked into the gyms where it's like, okay, the egos here are really high. And then I've walked into the gyms, like the gym I currently go to Florida Kickboxing Academy, where Asa Tenpao, who's a one championship fighter, former Glory fighter as well. He's the head coach there and owner. And the one thing I really appreciate at FKA, besides just the discipline, or besides just the skill level of everybody there, and how well I just mesh with everybody, bringing my skill set and intertwining with theirs, and I'm finding really good chemistry with those guys and gals there. But one thing I really appreciate about the place is that everyone bows to each other, bows on and off the mats, and for me, that's so important because it's looked at as a gym / dojo, but through the years, so many of the gyms I've trained at, with no disrespect towards any of them, I've only ever surrounded myself around good people, I think, in martial arts, but it's just, hey, it's just a gym. You go there, you kind of do what you do, you leave. Where to me, something as simple as bowing on and off the mats every time, whether it's to grab a quick sip of water and come back on, that's so important to me, especially having such a traditional background where, hey, every time you see somebody, you bow to them, you bow on the mats. That's just super important to me, to have that great mix of traditional martial arts and respect, because at the end of the day, we're all martial artists. It's like, hey, I could stop fighting, I can never step in a ring or a cage again, but I'm still going to be a martial artist, and those things are super important to me to have that traditional sense. So yeah.
And you said as you was younger, in the different things that you did, that was all traditional also?
Yes, I grew up purely a traditional. I actually never saw myself getting into mixed martial arts, even as it got more popular. I was in high school back when the UFC started to get real popular, and people would ask me if I was going to do that stuff. And I was like, I don't think so. My father was very against it. Obviously, my mother didn't want me doing it for obvious reasons, being a mother. And my dad was like, yeah, my dad was like, you don't need that stuff, martial arts. And I was like, no, Dad, for sure. Like, I'm not going to get into, that. Like, I've been on the mats to try to keep myself out of as many street fights as possible. Why am I going to go do cage fighting? And then, being around, starting to do jiu-jitsu competitions, and getting more into competitive, just more aggressive, testing myself physically, and having such a long striking background, and starting to get in the cage a little bit and sparring around and saying, oh, you know what, I mix it up okay on the hands. I'm getting good at wrestling and jiu-jitsu. And I just kind of got peer pressured into trying it out, especially, and I'm not one to hate on the UFC. I love the UFC, but and I know if it wasn't for the Ultimate Fighter, the UFC wouldn't be what it is today. But the UFC, in terms of shining a positive light on martial artists, did us no justice in the early days. With the guys fighting in the house and it was guys that were a lot of, I'd say 80% of the guys. I think that's a safe statistic to rest at. 80% of those dudes had a little bit of wrestling and wanted to throw hands. They weren't real martial artists. There was very few guys in the early days who were true martial artists. And because of that, fighters got a really bad rep. Oh, it's these bums, blah, 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 who just want. And it's like some of us, we have the traditional sense of what it is to respect your opponent, this, that, and the other. And I'm not pissed off or angry at this guy. I just have to go compete against him, and I still carry that, to this day as, hey, like we're martial artists before we are, fighters, and we just fight competitively because that's the truest form of expression in what it is that we've trained. So that's a little piece on that.
Well, no, it's funny, like when you was in high school is when UFC was, really starting to take off. When I was in high school was when it first started.
92, 91. Yeah, that's
92. Yep. The end of 92. I think it was November the 11th or something like that.
Something like that.
So and see, to me, at that point in time was when I really loved the UFC. Because for all that time, who was better? Who would, how would karate actually do against a boxer? How would karate do if he was, 5'8", and 100 and something pounds against a 200-pound, wrestler or something like that? When it was actually, a mixed martial, not even a mixed martial art, but a martial art contest. Let's say that, because before then, I mean, unless if you was ballet tudo or something like that, there was no mixed martial art, when it came to that. And I think really over the 30 years, I mean, you pretty much grew up where mixed martial art was in front of you.
Yes.
When I was a kid, there was no if you seen it, it was always in a movie,
Sure.
Like a Van Damme movie or Bloodsport or something like that. So
underground.
Underground kind of thing. And I personally have believe that mixed martial arts has became its own style.
Yes.
MMA has really became its own style.
I know schools. I lived in Minnesota for almost 8 years, and I know gyms like the Warriors Cove up in what part of Minnesota? I think it's I'm gonna butcher the name of the place, but no worries. It's they and that, and even I think Jackson Wink too. I think they have their own. They have an actual mixed martial arts style and like a criteria that uses the same belt system as jiu-jitsu to be like a, white, blue, purple, brown, black in the mixed martial arts. And so it's definitely evolved. And I know it's kind of like kickboxing where, kickboxing doesn't generally have a rank, but you can get ranked through like the World Kickboxing Association to be a black belt in kickboxing. I actually fought a guy who was a black belt in kickboxing. I was like, well, I've been doing kickboxing for like 16 years. Why am I not a black belt in kickboxing? Like, but it's like, because some places have like an actual criteria. So yeah, you're completely right about that, where it's become its own style, where it's like, hey, in order to be considered a mixed martial artist, you need to know X, Y, and Z at the bare minimum. Yeah, so it's definitely become its own style.
No, and I actually like the gym I go to here in Springfield, Oregon, Checker Past MMA. Our coach and the owner and the other coaches got together and said, you know what, there should be a ranking system in this, because one, people get to see progress. People want to sit there, yes, you can go and train for years and years at an MMA gym. But you know what? It feels nice to sit there and look at something on your wall and say, you know what?
Absolutely.
I'm progressing in something, right? Or
Absolutely.
people just want that Instagram pic.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. You can sit there, like I said, I've trained MMA for 10 years. And somebody goes, well, what belt are you, or something like that? And they're like, well, there is no belt, and there should be,
right.
Why not? But we also at the gym are very Muay Thai motivated too.
Sure.
So the Muay Thai coaches and stuff will, rank people with, I forget what the
The armbands.
Yeah, yeah, with the armband. And I really think that's a great idea, because why not? You want to see, jiu-jitsu, karate, taekwondo, anything else all has that, motivated thing to work for.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's just like this. What if you just went to school your whole life and you never
didn't get a
graduated?
degree? Yeah. Well, and the funny thing is too, and I'll call out anybody who has something to say about it, about, like you said, like an MMA ranking system. I'll call out anybody right now because I hear them a lot. Oh, I don't care about a ranking system. But it's like, you're just saying that because you go somewhere where there's not. And the truth of the matter is, you're just hating on the fact that there is none. You wish that after the 12 years you've put into rolling and the injuries, this, that, and the other, you wish that so you're telling me you don't care about an MMA ranking system, but you wish you were a jiu-jitsu black belt. It's like, come on now. You wish there was some sort of, trophy, certificate, belt, even a rash guard you could wear that signified, hey, this is who I am in this. Everybody wants it. You may come to a place in time where you're like, hey, you know what? My skill development is more important than the ranking, but you wish you had it. That's just there. It's undeniable.
Well, it's just like that. Like I said, I've been around martial arts, probably about since, 30 years or so, never ranking in anything, never going through a whole, curriculum or anything like that. And I'm sitting there thinking about, what if I did just start at karate and just, stayed with that? I said 30 years of karate. I mean, I'd have a lot of achievement, and there's nothing wrong with that. Now, if you're walking around, well, I'm a black belt, and blah, 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 the old karate kid, sticking your thumbs in your belt, just walking around like, nothing on you stinks, right? But no, I really think that MMA really should, have that.
I agree.
That belt system. And even one of the Muay Thai coaches there, Rennie, he's starting his own, side journey. He's still teaching because he does, adult classes and things like that. But he also does little ninjas, where he teaches, like my 5-year-old goes there, where he teaches the Muay Thai and, bully proof stuff like that, to help them with that, or abductions, how to get out of that. Sure. And he's starting off in his own little, thing where he's going to do personal training. And he's like, I've already thought about it, and I've came up with a ranking system because people still want that achievement or work to the next thing, and that's, I really think that's a really awesome thing. And absolutely, like even he's, because what he does is Muay Thai, Cali sticks, in night fighting, Filipino stick fighting, Filipino night fighting. Yep. And he said he's going to have a ranking system, and then I said that's actually a really good thing, So let's get back a little bit more to your earlier training and how and why and things like that. I always like to ask this question. How was it when you walked in the first time into that dojo? Was you afraid? Was you excited? Was you, when you're walking through that door, you have something in your head, right? Once you walk through that door, that all like kind of goes out the window.
Sure. So I think if I'm remembering back to my earliest days, Master Skinner, I think that I thought he was terrifying, not because he wasn't a nice guy, super nice guy, but I think I was terrified that at any point in time he could touch me and I'd die, literally. And because of that, I had the utmost fear. But I remember my father was with me, and I remember thinking that, hey, but my dad's a black belt in Hapkido and Taekwondo, and I bet my dad could beat this guy up. But my dad doesn't have time to train me. So this guy's going to train me. And I didn't even know if my dad told me that, to something of that effect. Like, hey, if this guy ever messes with you, I don't know. It was 25 years ago plus. So it's hard to remember, but I do remember I do remember walking, and he was wearing a checkered black and white like gi that the sleeves were like down to here. They weren't quite, long sleeves, and he had white pants on, but and the gi top he was wearing it was kind of like cushiony, but it was it was checkered like black and white. It was really nice, and I just remember thinking that this guy could just like shut me down. And my dad might even put it like, hey, make sure you behave. I was kind of a troubled kid, and make sure you behave, or like so yeah, that
Put
was
real
kind of my
pressure point
first.
on you.
Yeah,
Watch
but I
my
was just thinking like he just, and I would just like never cease to exist. So that was kind of like how I felt. I remember like if I'm thinking back at it, was so long ago. No one's asked me that question. I don't know if anybody's ever asked me that question actually. So
well,
that's interesting.
the reason why I ask it is because people that have a way of looking at, going into a karate studio or going into a Muay Thai, they may have something that's totally different, and maybe that's what's keeping them back from doing some kind of martial art.
Yeah, I think I was too young to have the fears that adults may have, because when you're so much younger, like I mean, for the amygdala is so much different when you're younger, and like I I had these extremes of like, man, this guy could, like put me down for the count forever. My
because of
life ends
movies,
at
right?
age 5. Right, because of movies, and 100% because of movies actually. And but the truth of the matter, like when you're older, like there's so much more of the ego you fight. And
Mm.
and I can even speak as a professional fighter and a lifelong martial artist. Anywhere I go, someone's gonna pick up right away. Oh, this guy knows what he's doing. That being said, there are times when I'm walking into a new gym to do some training, someone asks me to drop in, whatever the case, and I'm nervous as all get out. Even as a professional fighter, as someone who knows, hey, I've been in the ring and cage, like, whether it be in competition or in training with some of like the baddest dudes in the world and gone blow for blow with them. And I still get nervous sometimes walking into a sparring session at a new gym, like, man, I might suck today. Like you're just not always on your game. And because of that, if I can imagine that for myself and know that happens with 25 years of experience, and
Yeah.
uh, you know um for I can only imagine what some people might go through when but it's just at the end of the day, it's just all a mental thing.
Yeah.
It's I forget who says it. It's like an acronym for like fear, like uh I'll have to figure it out and send you in a message, but it's like, you're creating a reality that doesn't exist
Yep.
essentially,
Yep.
and so it's just a fear thing. So yeah, just two different things between being a child and being an adult with struggles of trying to get into martial arts.
Yep. See, I wasn't too afraid of my sensei when I started karate because I'm 6'5", and at that time I had lost some weight. So I was still right around like 660 or something like that, 640, right around there. And she was only maybe 5'3", 5'4", maybe like 100 and something pounds.
That's fair.
Yeah. So, I was like, I'm like, yeah, she knows, but I think I might be able to take but
That's fair.
no, yeah, she's a very cool instructor, very cool. It was Shudokan. It's
Okay.
not Shotokan, but Shudokan.
Right.
And
I've
it's
heard it. Yeah.
it's mostly up here in the North Pacific West. The guy that brought it over here, Mac Moores, and I forget the other guy. They actually went over to Japan and learned from the guy, that actually came up with it. And it's Takamura, and I'm going to say it wrong. So my instructor was a third generation of that style, so which that was actually kind of cool too. And it was weird. And this is where it comes into different dojos and different things, how it differs. All right. Like she was more about kata, and we never hardly ever sparred, right?
Mm,
She was all about, learning self-defense and stuff too, but you
sure.
never sparred, and it was always tell this story because it's hilarious. I'm a stay-at-home dad, so I done most of my training and stuff in the daytime, right? And so she would also, during that time was when there was a lot of homeschooling kids that would come in there.
Mm,
All right. And she'd be over there with, I remember this brother and sister, they was like 10 and 11 each, and she's over there and she's like, okay, so what you want to do is you want to break their neck. There's no need to throw them down on the ground. So lay them down gently.
oh my goodness.
So that's how she was. Now, not that long ago,
That's funny.
I started going over to her husband. They was divorced at this time. And I started going over to her husband. Same style, totally different schools. He was all about 100% self-defense. Yes, you're going to learn kata. That's fine. You can, but I learned this style, for 100% self-defense, and he was
Sure.
brutal all about the self-defense. And
Sure.
it's weird, people, when you go out and you're looking for a dojo or you're looking for a style, look for something that fits you.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
if you don't like Taekwondo because you maybe don't want to kick, and everybody, Taekwondo is a majority of a kicking style, you would say, right?
Oh,
Go
absolutely.
go find,
Yeah.
like you said, Kung Fu. Very,
Yep.
very little
And
kicking in it.
To your point, and I'm glad you actually brought that up, how people teach the same style but differently. So, and this kind of goes back to how I said about like the athletic portion of martial arts. When I did Kung Fu, I did Wing Chun for 8 years, and my Sifu, Sifu David Hopgood out of Lansing, Illinois, he was very, very heavy on forms. So, almost an entire class. I mean, besides some sticky hand sparring and, a little bit of movement back when he had a bigger dojo, and then eventually, like got a little harder. So we moved to a much smaller dojo that was actually in the front of his house. Where it's still great stuff. Some of my best, like memories are in that little like room that was probably just a little bit bigger than the room I'm in right now. A lot of it was just so much of form oriented, and in Kung Fu the movements, they're not big in Wing Chun. And they're not big. It's not like Shaolin where I'm
where you get big
developing
round hands and things like that.
Wing
You're
Chun
more
is right in here, and they're in an hourglass stance, or if you're doing Bagua, a little bit more wider, like it's or Bagua is actually Tai Chi, but it's similar in the stance. But he was very form heavy, so for some years it was okay with practicing the slow movements and without having to have such an emphasis on like large movements and really working up a sweat during class. I think I maybe like got a little bit of the sweat down the neck into like my Kung Fu uniform back then. Yeah, but not like now when I'm training, I'm
just
changing
drenched.
shirts halfway through the class, like, and I'm a sweater. I'm always one of the sweatiest guys on the mats, if not the. So like
trust me, I understand.
Sure, like, yeah, I'm a sweater. Like I'm like, oh, you're gonna know I'm working. Like I sweat. Before class even, I'll be walking into class sometimes and I'll start beating up on the head. So it makes cutting weight really easy though. I'll tell you that. I'll be cutting weight next to teammates in the sauna, and they'll just be like working, wishing for like a sweat, and I'll just be just rolling. They're like, I hate you, and I'm like, well.
That's been a new thing for me over the last few months. Working out gym that I started going to, they've got a sauna, and then right next to it they have a steam bath, steam room.
Oh yeah.
Then right next to that they got the jacuzzi, so you can just go down
oh
the
yeah
line, just sweating
absolutely
off,
absolutely.
But there's a gentleman, he's a singer for Gemini Syndrome. They're a metal band, and if anybody want to check them out, they're actually really good. They're always on tour with like Five Finger Death Punch and all these guys. But this lead singer is probably, I think he said 25 years of Southern Praying Mantis Kung Fu.
Mm,
And where this kung fu is, what's that one? Avatar, the cartoon.
sure. Yeah,
All
I
right,
love it.
the blind. I've never watched it. Is the blind girl on there? And she's a kung fu. What's
I'm
that girl?
having so it's been a hard time since I've it's been a long time a hard time. It's been a long time since I've watched Avatar because I
It's
think
been
the
hard for you
series
to watch.
yeah no the series ended I think like 10 plus years ago, but I
Okay.
watched it like when I was in high school I was watching Avatar.
Okay.
So yeah, it's been a long time since, but uh the girl that I'm thinking of who's the waterbender, she's
Yes.
not but she's not blind though, I don't think. She's just a
Oh,
waterbender.
and I don't know if she is blind or not, but either way, his Sifu is the one Nickelodeon brought in to teach
Oh,
them
that's so cool.
what this weird, because I guess that style was not a very big style anywhere
Mm,
in the world, because it's not as big as whatever, just the same thing with Shudokan and Shotokan. Shudokan here in America is not big at all.
sure.
Shudokan is big like all over the world. But I
Right.
do have to sit there and say the difference that I have seen in certain things, Shudokan is 100% just made for a self-defense style. It's not made for, point fighting and things, even though that they do that. It's pretty much just a straight, which all martial arts really is, but like they're really heavy. But also, like I said, it depends on who you go to, right?
Who you go to? Yep, no
Husband
doubt.
and wife are totally two different things. But
Yep.
yeah, he is an albino, the singer of Gemini
Oh, okay.
Syndrome. So uh, his eyesight is not very good. And like this style just worked perfectly, for him. And, that's why I really think, and he sat there and said, that style of Kung Fu is not big movements. It's more close in, with your stance and all that. Even the Shudokan style of karate that I was taking, it's they sit there and will tell you if it's past your shoulders, don't worry about it. You're fighting right here. That's exactly where you're fighting.
That's
You're
not far off the truth.
yeah, all your strikes is right there. All your attacks
Right.
is right there. All your
Mhm.
defense should be right there. Why worry about something that's coming over this way? Once it gets here, then react. You
Sure.
know,
Yeah,
um,
absolutely. If you react too early, you're way too in front of it.
yeah,
You're either
yeah.
gonna miss it or you're gonna hit yourself. Like you shouldn't be. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Yep.
and then her thing was always if somebody wants to fight you on a football field, fight them in a phone booth. If they want to fight you in a
Mhm.
phone booth, fight them on a football field. If
I
they
love it.
want that
Yep.
long distance, bring it in close because that means
Yep.
their close, fighting is not as good as their long distance. So,
Sure.
I always thought that was pretty interesting. So let me ask you this: when you was younger and you switched styles,
Yep.
how was that for you? Uh,
Hard.
really,
Hard.
and why was
Yep.
that?
It was difficult because and this is gonna play into what we talked about and how you train certain things, but it went from I did have the idea that I was kind of untouchable, in a weird way, and I found out real quick that I was touchable. And I don't mean that to sound wrong. I mean, like, I found out real quick that nope, there are some average Joes out there that can definitely put hands on me, when they're swinging at full speed or even 70% of speed. And there's a lot of things you can't do when you have boxing gloves on. Uh, there's and there's just something different about getting hit at full force, if you're not sparring and in tune with other people's movements. I think it was actually Joe Rogan and Faraz Sahabi who said it really best, talking about if you're not like how like sparring's a reality check, and if you're not in tune with another person's movement and how other people can move, it's almost like you're just doing yoga. If you're like you can train all the right movements and you can be a perfectionist at the movements and they're applicable, but if you're not in tune with how other people move, and your rhythm's off, your timing's off, and you just don't have a real good sense of reality of how fast things can happen. So making the switch, and then especially starting jujitsu, not having a wrestling background, not having any sort of I remember one of my friends actually who was getting into wrestling, and I had all this martial arts experience. So if we would have like fought, I probably would have pieced him up. But he asked me just to wrestle, and I was like, sure, like I'll know how to defend. And he picked me up. We were on the grass in like someone's backyard, and he picked me up and slammed me. And I remember being on my back, and just the way he was laying on made me so uncomfortable that I actually kind of started to like panic, and I was like, get off of me. And I'll like I'll never forget that experience. And even my first day ever doing gi jujitsu, I remember just having the gi on and being on my back, pulling guard, like having guard. I couldn't, I felt like I was suffocating. And I was just holding guard on someone. They weren't even doing anything. We were like drilling. And it was a very uncomfortable thing for me. And I've been doing jujitsu now for almost 16 years, and I sucked at jujitsu for the first 18, 19 months. I mean, just got my ass handed to me every day. I was nervous to go to class. I would find reasons to skip going to class because, you know, like I was just, it's like, this is going to be brutal. I never go in there. I never win. You know, I never win against anybody. And then one day, it's funny how jujitsu works and some of these striking arts, some of these, you know, more full contact striking arts, but jujitsu specifically, is that like one day you roll with someone who usually subs you 3 or 4 times in a round in a 5-minute round, and they just don't sub you one day. And you're like, huh, that was interesting. I didn't get tapped once, or I escaped this position. And then you roll with someone else and the same thing happens. And it's like one day something clicks, and next thing you know, like you get new people who come into the gym who have no experience. And then these things that you've been learning for the past year and a half or year, some people excel faster than others. I was not one of those people who excelled faster than others. And you find out that, oh, this guy, like I can do what I want with this guy. Now I'm hitting these submissions I've been learning that, you know, I could never hit on someone who was 2 or 3 years in front of me. And then one day you start stalemating these people, you hit your first sub on someone who always like kicked your ass, and like it just the evolution of how you go. Then go to a different gym and you learn that, hey, you were swimming in a sea full of sharks, and not all gyms, not all jujitsu gyms, not all kickbox, they're not all made the same. You know, like and so yeah, that's but the switch from traditional martial arts to more like full contact, it was difficult at a young age, where I thought that all the moves I knew would help me to survive, but I didn't have the real practical experience against other people who were training. If I had gotten a fight, you know, growing up at school or, you know, wherever, that was different. You know, I had the training. It was much different. But like in a gym where people knew how to fight, it was eye opening for me for sure.